Think about your own path. Think about how you might have answered that question 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever it is. Think about where you have been with the idea of where does God live? It's something that we can think about in the history of religiosity throughout humanity. There was a time, for example, when perhaps God lived in a physical object for people. The idea is that, God is in this tree. This tree is God. This is the God tree. And we got to protect the tree. We got to make sure that that's held sacred. And there's a lot of lessons to be learned from the way the seasons go and reflected in the tree and the growth and the life that it gives and the fruit and all of that stuff. It works until it doesn't work. It works until you got to leave town, or until the tree gets struck by lightning, or until there's a drought, or something happens where that can't scratch the itch anymore. And then for some people, they have a different concept of God, maybe a little bit bigger geographically speaking, where God isn't just in one physical object. Maybe God is the God of, like, the harvest. Well, that's good. There's things involved in that I can't get my head around, and so that works. Or maybe it's just a God of these people that are like me. Ooh, works for a while, until it doesn't work. What about when it ain't harvest time? What about a bad year? Is God mad at you? Well, that's some people's answer. And if God is a God of people that are just like me, what happens when my kid inevitably falls in love with someone from a different tribe? It happens. And all of a sudden, it works until something causes it to not work. For some people, then the concept of where does God live gets bigger and higher up, and all of a sudden God is this, usually guy, frankly, in the sky. God is a guy up in the sky somewhere, and that just answers it, because everywhere I go, there's this guy. And it kind of works. But then the problem that comes out of that is more existential, because if God is just somewhere, frankly, who cares? And how do I know that this concept cares about me? At least when God was a tree, I could go hug the tree. I could visit the tree. I can't do anything with this absentee landlord in the sky. What am I supposed to do with this? And the problem becomes more existential. It works until it doesn't. And frankly, there's a lot of people in a lot of churches on a lot of Sunday mornings that are still just going, he's up there somewhere. Just wait till your father comes home. And I don't mean to make fun, but it just doesn't work for me, and I come from that place, I think there's another answer, and it's the answer that perhaps we're all chewing on in one way or another, and that is, let's make it even bigger. Let's push this concept out even further. Let's make this concept of where does God live so much bigger that we get to this place that every kid knows the answer to. When you ask a child, where does God live? They say, everywhere. And in here. That's the good kid answer, right? And the reason that works is because if you have a circle of infinite circumference, the center point is every point. When you have a circle of infinite circumference, when you push it out far enough into infinity, the middle is everywhere. And we begin to realize that this works pretty good. It's a fairly recent development in the history of human religiosity to have this concept of a portable God. Think about how your phone works and how it used to work. You've got a portable God. You've got a concept that involves the idea that, wait a minute, when I experience enlightenment, when I laugh, when I experience art, truth, beauty, the place where I feel it isn't in a tree. It isn't in a season. It isn't in a people. And it sure as heck ain't out there somewhere. When I experience inspiration and beauty and love, I experience it in here. What I want y'all to know is that when you feel that, you are experiencing where God lives. And it has everything to do with making this concept as big as possible, but also at tearing down as many walls as possible. Those two things have to happen at the same time if you and I are going to get to anything that looks like happy. I know people feel funny sometimes about that word religion. I get it. Some people have been to places where that word is used and it feels funny. But the truth is, the word just means the stuff you do about how you feel. That's all religion is. We got to meet our neighbors when they first moved in a couple of years ago. And they're really into sports. I'm not super into sports. I don't really get what's going on there. No criticism. It's just not my thing. But we go in and they've got Buccaneers jerseys like in frames on the wall and pictures of them in the outfit with the paint and the whole thing. And there's a place that they go on most Sundays and they sit with a lot of other people and they cheer and they sing and they celebrate. And it's everything to them. And they asked me, what do you do? And I said, I'm a minister. And they said, well, we're not very religious. I'm like, you're a lot more religious than I am, dude. You got all the stuff. Religion is just what you do about how you feel, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, let's be religious, but let our religion be love. Nothing wrong with that. Let me put it this way. If your religion is what you say and what you do and what you think, are you a missionary for a God that lives somewhere else and may or may not care, or are you a missionary for something that is in each and every one of us? That's the choice you have. And you get to decide how you feel about that. But it's all about breaking down boundaries. They say that if you remove technology and substitute skill, you have a more authentic experience. That's a lot of words, so I'll say it again. They say that if you remove technology and substitute skill, you have a more authentic experience. Here's what I mean. The first car I ever drove was a stick shift. That's how old I am. But man, when you do that, you really feel like you're driving with a manual transmission. You ever get somewhere using GPS? That's great. But isn't it cool if you can read a map? It feels more genuine. Isn't it even cooler if you know how to get there by heart? It's a substitution of skill for technology, and it feels more genuine. It's lovely to go to a restaurant. Ain't nothing wrong with that, but isn't it great when something's made from scratch? Isn't it cool when you make something over the fire even? Come on. There's something that happens when you substitute something outside and you use something inside instead. There's something beautiful about that. And everyone in the room nodded their heads when I said that because we know how that feels. Why is that good? Think about it with me. Why is that good? When we watch Star Wars, the first one, the good one, and Luke Skywalker is in the trench of the Death Star towards the end, and he's supposed to use his computer, and they go, Luke, you've turned off your targeting computer. And everybody goes, yeah, he did. Why is that good? It's good because everything is like everything, because that speaks to something that we all know to be true. The more you can take down a barrier, the more you can lean into something that is the center of the universe, the truer it is, the better it is, the easier it is, the happier it is. Prosperity, for example, is a matter of removing layers of abstraction. It's something I talk about a lot. It's kind of a bugaboo with me. It's something that needs to be talked about. People say, well, I don't want to get up in the morning, but I got to go to this job. And I don't want to go to the job. I hate the job, but I need the money. Well, I don't really need the money. I hate thinking about money, but I want people to like me. What you really want is to be liked. What if you just worked on that? You know? Are there a lot of examples of that? Yes. For any evidence, see, I don't know, the internet. Look at Instagram for 2 seconds. It's that thing of there are so many levels between me and the thing that I'm really working on, and if you want to prosper, find ways to take some of those layers out. So many times people go, okay, well, I know that what's going to make me happy is this one particular thing, let's say a new car. And if I pray for this new car, and God gives me this new car, or I manifest the car, whatever terminology you like, I do the spiritual thing, and God delivers a car, because that's what God's for. I get the car. Then I'll be better. Well, what do you want? You want the car, you want to be free. You want to be happy. What are you working on? What's the car do for you? I got to tell you, because I've been doing this a long time, and I've seen a lot of truly miraculous things. This works better when we get out of God's way. Stop praying for the car and start praying for the happy. Stop praying for the thing and start praying for the feeling, the mental equivalent, the way that your heart yearns. Your heart doesn't yearn for a Buick. No one's does. Your heart doesn't even yearn for a Lamborghini. It may seem like it sometimes. What you want is to be happy and free. So work on the happy and free and let God do what God do. You know? That's the secret to all of this. And I have to tell you, I wish that it weren't. Because I could make a whole lot more money if I was just selling magic rocks. If I could just go, oh, you know what you need is this thing that only I have. And it's a magic rock. Or it's a special set of secret teachings that only I know about. And you better show up to the place where I'm speaking, and then I will sell it to you for 6 easy payments. You know? If I could do that, boy, oh boy. But that's not how this works. And truly, I'm happy that it's not how it works. Because I'm not interested in a product. And I'm not even interested in you agreeing with me. I'm not here to sell you my dogma. I'm here to sell you the idea that you can be free. That's what I want. And that's what we are here to work on. Charles Fillmore says, you know when a religion becomes a trade because it develops trade secrets. Which I love. Funny guy. But there's something to that. Let us be the kind of people that remove the secrets, that remove the layers, that remove the boundaries, and stop chasing some external thing. The spiritual leap is when we stop praying for anything in particular and we start just praying to be closer to Spirit. Sometimes we start our journey with there's this one specific thing, but then we get to the end of the journey or closer to the end of the journey and we go, I don't care how this looks. I know that I'm me and God's God and that's enough. Boy, when you get out of the way, amazing things happen, don't they? And I see enough people nodding their heads to where you know it because you've lived it, right? You know what this is. And what's the alternative? You want to chase money for a while? I get it. But money's based on numbers. And how many numbers are there? A lot, right? Infinity. There's always more. Always more money you can chase. There's always more things. There's always a newer car, a faster computer, a more prestigious zip code. There's always something else that you can get to. When you get to a horizon, you find a new horizon. And you can just keep doing that forever. And never get any closer to knowing who you are, never get any closer to being happy. You can chase those things if you want. And I know we've been taught that we're supposed to. But you know what happy looks like. And it ain't that. Happiness, again, prosperity, success, spiritual grooviness, whatever you want, has to do with taking down those barriers, with not chasing the thing, but going somewhere deeper. And people nod their heads when I say stuff like that because it kind of makes sense. But I want us to go to a deeper level with that. For some people, I think the last barrier is the one that we don't know exists, and it's this. I want you to stop thinking about God. I want you to stop thinking about God. Because to bruise a quote from Alan Watts, spirituality is not thinking about God while you're doing the dishes. Spirituality is just doing the dishes. Because that's a God activity. If God's there, then what you got to do thinking about it? What I'm trying to say is I don't want you to try and fit spirituality between your ears anymore. I want you to live it. It's not the thought that counts. I mean, how many country songs are based around, well, I thought about you while I was doing that bad thing. You like that? Did it feel authentic? You know what I mean? It ain't the thought that counts. What are you doing about it? Stop thinking about God and start thinking God. Stop thinking about love and start loving. Do not ever send me a text message that says, I'm sending you love or I'm sending you hugs. I don't even know what that means. Just love me. Don't send it. Don't think about it. Be it. That's the difference. Take that wall down. And something amazing happens when you stop trying to figure out God. Because it is not a tree. It is not a thing that you can fit in your understanding. And you know it because you know what happiness, you know what love, you know what art feels like. And the moment you try to figure out your love, you blow it. Why is this art good? Oh, geez, one of these people. You know what I mean? Stop thinking about it and start trying to find some way to live it. Because there is no equation for enlightenment. I'm going to say that again. There is no equation for enlightenment. Wouldn't it be cool if I could just sell you, if you do use these specific affirmations, this thing that I wrote down, then you got it. Well, how's that different than a magic rock? Really? It doesn't work that way. You can't figure it out. And the moment you try to chart the course of that, you lose the thing that makes it beautiful. There's no equation for enlightenment because there's always more. Just get in touch with the journey of it. About 100 years ago, There's a mathematician named Kurt Gödel, great name, about 100 years ago. He came out with the incompleteness theories. I know everybody's really big on 1930s mathematics, so I don't really need to explain that, but I will anyway. He basically said, stick with me, I'm going somewhere. He basically said, in any system of mathematics, there are things that you can't prove inside that system. In other words, within arithmetic, there are things you can't prove inside arithmetic. You got to leap out to algebra. And within algebra, there's things you can't prove in algebra. You got to leap out to geometry. And you got to leap out to set theory. You got to leap out to imaginary numbers. You got to leap out to, all of a sudden, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. There is no closed system that can explain itself. Isn't that interesting? That there is a leap every time. And it might feel like a problem. Well, it also might feel like a problem when the tree isn't enough anymore. It might feel like a problem when the harvest isn't enough anymore. It might feel like a problem when that guy in the sky isn't enough anymore. But is it? Look back at your life. It might have felt like a problem at the time. But look how far you've come. It might feel like a problem when the closed system doesn't work anymore. And in fact, the incompleteness theory of Kurt Gödel sounds a little bit like the theory of, well, it ain't a tree anymore. But you know what it really sounds like to me? Stick with me on this. It sounds like my life. I can't tell you how many times I had it all figured out, where I had a closed system of how this was going to work, and something happened that sure as heck felt like a problem, and I had to leap out into something else. I can't tell you how many times I thought that some job or somebody's opinion of me or some possession that I own, something was going to do it for me, and then all of a sudden it didn't. And it may have felt like a problem at the time, but it caused me to push out even more and push out even more until I was dealing with something infinite. And I don't know, but maybe your life is just like mine. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to embrace the idea that it's okay for there to be infinity in my equations, that it's okay for there to be more, that it's okay that I'm not supposed to figure this out, I'm supposed to feel it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is look at the areas of your life where you got it all wired, where it's a closed system, because that's where the growth is going to happen. And you get to decide if it's growing pains or a leap into something beautiful. Because the areas where we have it all figured out are where we are the least powerful and the most boring. The areas where we have it all figured out are where we are the least powerful and the most boring. I'm not here to sell you a book where everything is figured out. I'm here to sell you on the idea that you are allowed to be open. God doesn't live within the closed system. God lives in the leap to the next thing. So let's you and me be the kind of people who can jump. Let's you and me be the kind of people who can be free. Because after all, freedom is a choice. Thank you. I am so glad.